Now, after the war, the need for a docile and unorganizable labor force did not diminish. Now, debates are going to increase after the war on the continued funding of this particular program. And then the Korean War breaks out in 1950, and the Korean War ensured the program's existence. Public Law 78 extended the program indefinitely. Now, in the 1950s, what's important to understand is that California had tremendous amounts of migrant farm workers, Filipinos, Mexicans, and poor whites, that they were struggling in the 1930s to organize into unions to improve their lot in the fields. The growers, by the 1940s and 50s, are going to begin to realize that the Bracero program can be used as a weapon against those citizens those who were already here, those immigrants who were already here trying to organize into unions. Growers, what would happen, would claim a labor shortage when workers struck, and they would request the importation of braceros. So what's going to happen is that the growers had always benefited from using undocumented workers. So eventually what's going to happen is that the federal government has to convince growers to embrace the Bracero program, and that will occur during the McCarthyite atmosphere of the 1950s, which was known as the Second Red Scare, and it's going to influence the federal government to support the growers by implementing a program called Operation Wetback. Now, Ernesto Galarza, in his seminal work, Merchants of Labor, is going to create a program called Operation Wetback. Ernesto Galarza, in his seminal work, Merchants of Labor, is going to reveal that in California, as Mexicans who organized in the fields were rounded up and deported, braceros came in to take their place. So what Operation Wetback, it was a federal policy that was designed to aid growers, but also to convince them to use the Bracero program. And so growers became convinced they could go ahead and deport Mexican union organizers and replace undocumented workers with braceros. So it forced growers to hire braceros, not undocumented workers. So this proved fruitful until the 1960s, when the United Farm Workers exposed the program for what it was, the Bracero program. It was a federally designed program to provide cheap labor and deport those involved in unionization efforts. It was known as the guest worker program. Now let's take a look at a contemporary immigrant rights activist interpret the federal government's film on Operation Wetback. The government sponsored a film that fed the hysteria in the 1950s. And so racial and cultural bigots today are going to use this federal footage to stir up hatred. But in this particular case, there's the federal footage that's used by an immigrant rights activist. Let's go to Operation Wetback. All right, that was Galindo Productions, but I just thought I'd do that because of the dramatization, especially with regards to that person that's in the White House today. Now, you have to understand, again, Mexicans, you can't live with them. Mexicans, you can't live without them. The United States needs Mexican workers, but they just don't want them around in the neighborhood. Why can't they just come into work and then just leave because we don't want to see them? And that's been the Mexican experience throughout when the United States, after all, took over Nuestra Señora cerca del Río Porciúncula la Reina Los Angeles, or this place called Los Angeles. So you know when the American first came over and he started wanting to know how to pronounce this place, and the Mexicans telling them, hey, you know, Nuestra Señora cerca del Río Porciúncula la Reina Los Angeles, and they're going, what, Los Angeles? As, no, Los Angeles. What, Los Angeles? So you know that the American and the Mexican, they're arguing over how to pronounce this place called Los Angeles, until a Tongva shows up and says, hey, both you're wrong, it's L.A. Now, we've got the Mexicans now. What's happening with women? What's happening with children?